General Government Budget Committee from the House of Representatives. Looks like we have a quorum, so if we count the WebEx folks. So today, first off, before we get started, let me make a request for bill introductions. Yes, Marcus, is my mic on? It is. Oh, okay. Can everyone hear me online? Okay, Tom can hear me, so that's all that really counts. All right. First off, I'd like to make a request for bill introductions. Going once, going twice. Callers online? Seeing none. All right, very good. Now, today we'll have an informational briefing from three departments: the Kansas Insurance Department, the Department of Revenue, and the Dental Board. So, as you may have noticed from the report out schedule and from our meeting schedule, everything's a little bit condensed this year. We're going to be turning everything in by turnaround. We have everything reported out to appropriations by turnaround. So that's a little bit of a compressed schedule, which impacts this committee more than any other. Lucky us, but it's because we're up to the challenge. So to get us started on the Kansas Insurance Department, let's start out with Martin DeBoer via WebEx, who's going to run through the budget analysis for us. Martin, are you there?
He's Martin had told me in the hall that he was running between two committees.
Very good. It's going to be a little bit hard to ask Commissioner Schmidt questions if we haven't gone over the budget ahead of time. Might be getting off a little bit easy, Vicki.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a great idea.
Welcome to committee. Okay, well, we can start off with you. I understand that you're a little bit pressed for time, so I wanted, are there things in your budget? Yes. You were saved by the bell. All right, Martin DeBoer is here, and we'll get right back to you as fast as we can, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, Martin DeBoer for an oversight of the Kansas Insurance Department. This technology I'm loving. I am loving every moment of this. Those of you on WebEx, that was serious sarcasm.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me? Oh, and I cannot hear you.
I can hear you.
Oh,
We're
okay.
good to go.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I'm double booked in two committees at the same time. So here we'll go. Have we already presented the budget committee report out procedure? Have we already discussed this?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. Which particular portion of the report out procedure are we talking about?
My apologies. I just wanted to touch base with the report out procedure on the signatureless procedure, where you will be receiving an email confirmation on what the committee decides. That was sent out. It's called the Budget Committee and Subcommittee Report Out Procedure. This is a procedure that describes how the Budget Committee to verify the report, that you will be receiving an email copy of the budget, and that all replies will be due back to the fiscal analyst by 5 p.m. Before the report out date. I just wanted to touch base and make sure that we were all aware of that. And if you had any questions, please feel free to ask. And you can send us an email as well.
Very good. Now, there are a couple of days where that's going to be a tight squeeze. It might be sliding under the wire at 5 o'clock.
Definitely understandable. So with that, I'll go ahead and begin the presentation on the Kansas Insurance Department. On the first page, you'll have a general overview on the top of the capital expenditure, the operating expenditures. And the bottom, you'll have a general overview. So the insurance department insures consumers of Kansas and serves a public interest through a supervision, control, and regulation of persons and organizations transacting the business of insurance within the state. It is the department also houses the Office of Securities Commissioner. I would like to turn to page 5. The first couple of pages are just a general overview of the agency and a little bit of the prior year history. Page 5 has a overview of some of the performance measures that have been identified by the agency and the governor. The following couple pages will show a budget trend and a general overview of the operating expenditures, and I'd like to begin on page 8. On page 8, in the middle of the page, we have the FY21 agency revised estimate. The agency estimates revised expenditures of $34.7 million, all from special revenue funds for FY 2021. This is an all funds increase of $707,822, or 2.1% above the FY 2021 approved amount. The increase is primarily attributable to increased expenditures for accounting services, litigation support services, and advertising for the new anti-fraud and investor education campaign. The revised estimate includes 136 FTE positions, which is an increase of 0.4 FTE positions above the approved number. The revised estimate is further detailed below by expenditure categories. I would like to turn to page 9. And in the middle of page 9, you will see the governor's recommendation for FY 2021 expenditures of $35.7 million, including $976,666 from the SGF. This is an increase of $976,666, all SGF, or 2.8% above the agency's FY 21 revised estimate. This increase is the same amount as the FY 2020 lapsed funds from the privilege fee account from the SGF. This is for a refund from overpayment of privilege fees that was authorized for a company that is no longer doing business here in Kansas. And with that, I will stand for questions for FY 21.
Mr. DeVore, now, as I understand it, with regards to that privilege fee, the company had already paid into the fund, and that amount was transferred to SGF before they decided to not do business in Kansas, and so it was reimbursed. Is that correct?
That is correct. So these funds were paid and then they lapsed, and they requested the funds back so that they could return it to the agency, return it to the insurance company.
All right, Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Martin, question, and I'm not sure if this is the time or not, but we had quite a discussion last year about the sale of the building. And I just wanted to know if inside the 2021 budget, is the revenue for the sale reflective in this year? The money that was agency?
To my knowledge, I am not sure right now. I do know that there was a bill introduced that would relate to the revenue of this, and the agency is with us today as well, so maybe they could clear that up a little bit later. But right now, off the top of my head, I do not know, but I can figure that out for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right, as I recall, that bill just made sure that the agency wasn't paying 20% of it to Caper's debt reduction, but it never went anywhere, and so 20% should go there, but where did the other money go, I think is the question.
I understand, and I will follow up with you, Representative.
Excellent. All right, further questions from the committee so far? Senator Wagner.
Yes, seeing how this is my first budget committee meeting, so we're asking him the questions, or we ask Secretary Schmidt the questions, or as far as what's kind of the protocol for this hearing?
kind of both, really. There are a lot of the explanation of what's here of the budget analysis would go to the budget analyst. And then with regards to outside things, future plans, impact, that sort of thing, that would go to the secretary, to the commissioner, sorry.
So, again, this is the place where we ask any questions we have about this budget. This, right now, okay.
Okay, all righty.
All right, thank you, Chairman.
One moment, Paul, Representative Wagner does have a question. He just hasn't framed it just yet. Oh, okay. Are there other questions from the committee? Buying time for Representative Wagner. Okay. Melissa DeBoer, go ahead and continue away.
All right, thank you, Chairman. We'll start with FY 2022 at the bottom of page 9. So the agency requests $34.8 million, all from special revenue funds for FY 2022. This is an all funds increase of $82,606, which is 0.2% above the FY 2021 revised estimate. The increase is primarily attributable to increased expenditures for salaries and wages and fringe benefits. Moving over to page 10, towards the bottom, you can see that the governor concurs with the agency's request for FY 2022. And I'll stand for questions.
Yes, real quickly, that 82,000, is that the 2.5% pay raise across the board, or is that just in keeping with their staffing levels?
That is just in keeping. That does not include the pay raise that I'm aware of.
Where the insurance committee, our insurance department has 136 full-time equivalent positions. Are all of those filled positions, or are some of them empty? Or what exactly does that mean when it's stated what they have?
So the 136 FTE positions were positions that have been approved for the agency that they seek funding for. Now, that does not mean that they are all filled. There may be some vacant positions within that 136. So the agency does have some vacant positions, and I can get those specific information for you if you'd like.
That's fine. This is just a procedural question or informational.
All right, go ahead and proceed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to now flip to page 13. Here we have the funding sources for the agency. I will not go through them in detail, but the agency is a fee-funded agency. And they have the Insurance Company Examination Fund, and we have an analysis there. We have the Insurance Department Services Regulation Fund analysis, as well as the Securities Act Fee Fund analysis. These graphs will show you the balances as well as the cash flow within each of those funds. And then I would like to point out on page 15, we begin a program detail. This is a breakdown of all the programs within the agency. So it is a further breakdown of all the information that was provided previously in the budget analysis, just broken down by the agency's individual programs. And with that, I conclude my overview for the insurance department, and I'll stand for any questions.
I'm seeing a pretty drastic increase in the fee fund balances. Well, when it goes 100% in 2 years, that's pretty dramatic. I know that wouldn't be one for you to answer unless there was something at play within the budget that would do that. It would be more of an agency question, I think.
Yes, I would concur. Right now, I do not know but I can follow up and get those answers as well.
Would be excellent. And we'll address that with the commissioner as well. I think Vicki just said, bring it. I think I saw her saying that. All right, any further questions from the committee? Yes, Representative Wagner.
Following up on the chairman's question, on page 13, your chart, I mean, effectively, it looks like your revenue runs about $20 million a year. Your expenditures run about $10 million a year. It's like that's quite a differential, which is one reason, of course, the fee fund balance keeps going up. And then my other question is regarding what is the transfer in of $5.375 million? That is from what?
One moment, please.
Mr. DeBoer,
Yes.
that's the repayment from the lawsuit.
Okay.
Commissioner Schmidt will probably address this question as we go through her testimony. Any further questions for the fiscal analyst, for the budget analyst before we? Seeing none. All right. Thank you, Analyst DeBoer. That was scintillating and is every bit as exciting as it was presented to be. And next we have Kansas Commissioner of Insurance, Vicki Schmidt. Welcome to committee, Vicki.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Chairman. To you and the committee, I want to let you know how much I appreciate being able to do this virtually today. We do have staff in your committee room, and they will be, we'll talk about them in a second, but I really want to thank you for this opportunity. I also want to thank each one of you for your service. I know how tough these budget committees can be, and so I really appreciate your service in general also. The Kansas Insurance Department is pleased to present our budget to you today. Before I introduce the staff, I'd like to tell you about a couple of key things that are happening this year within the department. The first one is really, truly riveting and exciting. 1 month from today, on March 1st, the department will celebrate its 150th anniversary and our birthday. And so we are so excited to do that. And I would invite each of you to follow us on social media. I think we're going to try to have a little fun with that, even in COVID pandemic time. It's an important piece of our history, and we're looking forward to it. We've reached out to some former insurance commissioners and former staffers, long-term staffers, so it should be fun. Secondly, on a more serious note, a much more serious note, this fall in November, we will be undergoing our 5-year accreditation process through the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. I can't tell you how important this is. I can't overstress the importance of that. We will, it's what gives our other peers, our other states confidence that we are doing business like we're supposed to, and we're regulating our domiciled companies appropriately. And this is what they do this is what the accreditation is all about. It also gives assurances to any business that's looking forward to possibly locating here in Kansas. So it's very important. There are a couple of key pieces of legislation that the department will be bringing before the House this year to help us with that accreditation process. We would I absolutely love your support on those bills, but if there are things that you have questions about that, let us know, because they are very important, and they're an important piece of that accreditation process. I would like to introduce our 2 staff members that are in your committee room with you today. Bobby Mariani is our Director of Administration and Human Resources, and Charlotte Daubert is our Comptroller. They're both there. And Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I think that some of the questions that you asked are in their presentation. So if it's okay, would we be able to have them do their presentation and then take the questions? because I think, as I said, some of those would be answered.
Just perfectly for me. Absolutely.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll turn it over to Bobby, or, well, I'll turn it over to you. I'm sorry, I'm not the chair. I'll turn it over to you, who can turn it over to wherever he wants.
There you go. All right, I appreciate that. All right. But not wanting to irritate the Commissioner of Insurance, I will turn it over to Bobby Mariani. Welcome to committee, Bobby. Very much prefer it, yeah.
Try to answer some of the questions as I go through. Again, we provide you with information about our budget. It's on. Service possible for our citizens and businesses of Kansas. I'm going to highlight some things, not the numbers since Martin went over those, but just try to highlight some things that impact our budget. Like every other state. Okay, can you hear me now? I'll just try to speak up. Okay. Um, anyway, so we'll highlight a couple, things that are affecting our budget. And like every other state agency, managing with the pandemic requirements is something that has affected our budget somewhat. We did have to gear up with technology to accommodate social distancing and being able to allow some of our employees to work from home so that we try to minimize the number of people that are in the building at any one time. So we have literally all of our employees, except for our mail and building services people, have laptops that they can take with them and make work for that. We also had to do, we are in a new building, but we still had to modify a little bit with some plexiglass for consumers that come in and some of our hallways and partitions and those kind of things, but we are glad to be in that building. And then, of course, enhanced cleaning. Whenever we have meetings, we clean after each one of those, all those things that everyone else is doing. As far as the facilities, we did move to a new building in 2019. We are so glad to be there because it does allow us to handle that in a lot better fashion. We appreciate being with Securities Division now. We are both together. It allows us to do a lot more things as a whole agency and to gain some efficiencies from that as well. We did close on the sale of the building in 2019. I can talk to you about that. We did have a bill last year that would have allowed us to keep those proceeds, but because of the sort of shortened and prioritized session, it didn't pass. So 20, after the proceeds go to the Department of Administration first, they take out any expenses, like we had to have an appraisal and they had to have, some other things, the auctioneer, all those type of expenses come out first. And then 20% will eventually go to the agency, 80% will go to Capers. So when all is said and done, we have not receipted that yet. Yep.
I'm sorry, I thought it was the reverse, 80%, 80% goes to Capers, really? All right, I misremembered.
Expenses, 20% go to us, 80% goes to Capers. So we have not received those monies yet. That kind of made us think we probably should check with Department of Administration. But when all is said and done, we will get, again, 20% of what is left after expenses for the building. So I hope that answers that question for you.
To a degree, I mean, if the building was sold in 19, I am kind of curious about where,
We moved in 19. The building did not sell or close on the building until November of 2020.
oh, very good.
So it
Okay.
just closed. And we did not include the receipts of that in our budget because at the time, we did not know if the building was going to sell in 2020. So it's not in there. So I hope that answers that.
One moment, Bobby. Representative Wagner.
So just again, by way of protocol, Can we ask her questions in the course of her presentation, or we wait till the end until she's done? Is it, how is this done in budget committees?
I'd kind of like to wait until stopping points, but I myself am a little bit impatient like that and I'll jump to, but I would prefer to wait until she's finished with her testimony. That would be most polite. I just jumped in on that one and I apologize.
Okay, well, let me just be slightly impolite. What was the total selling price? That was my
535,000. So then staffing our department, I will mention there as well. Even though we have 136.5 FTE, currently we only have about 128 positions filled. We do have some vacancies, which I'll talk about. We do have an assistant chief examiner. Our financial examiner positions are difficult to recruit for. We try hard to retain them. They are an integral part of our accreditation process. That is one area that they focus greatly on when we're doing accreditation. So that's why we have a few vacancies, difficulty recruiting those. So if you know anybody that could be an assistant chief examiner, we'd love to hear from you. We also recently filled our securities commissioner position after the retirement of Jeff Wagaman, who was the former securities commissioner, and Dan Lucas filled that position, and he will be going through Senate confirmation. As far as department priorities, as the commissioner mentioned, our legislative agenda does include House Bill 2074. It is a bill about producer licensing. The bill pertains to examinations, producer and public adjuster licensing requirements, renewal dates, agents, conduct suspension, revocation of denial, and appointment requirements for those. Eliminating the affiliate agent reporting requirements for business entities will have an impact on our insurance regulation fee fund, the fund that you talked about that has quite a large balance. So that's part of the reason we've sort of been holding that, is because if the bill does pass, which we hope we'll get your support for, it will result in a loss of revenue to our fee fund of approximately $5.23 million each year. So that will take a big hit to the department insurance fund as we move on. We are also preparing for, I guess they can't hear me online. I'm so sorry. Tell them online they can hear in the committee. I don't know. The governor recommends our request for both the current fiscal year 2021 and 2022. We would appreciate your support for the department's request. As previously noted by our research analyst, we are requesting an increase for 2021. While travel expenditures are down with COVID, we did have an increase in contractual services for our work comp fund, for our attorney's fees, physicians and medical associations, hospital and nursing homes and other professional fees, and capital outlay for an agency as a whole, as I mentioned, trying to gear up with technology due to the pandemic and accommodating work from home and social distancing in the office. There is also an increase in salary and wage expenditures. This is again due to those positions we have a hard time filling and retaining. We did provide some salary increases specifically for those difficult to recruit positions. We still struggle with them, but that is the reason there's an increase in our salaries and wages. We do have a healthy fee fund balance. I think as the commissioner mentioned, we did have a lawsuit settlement that was a total of $16.1 million that we received in $5 million increments the last couple of fiscal years. So that also attributes to our balance being so high right now. But again, if our licensing bill passes, which would be a benefit to our agents out there and also assist in us complying with our accreditation, then that will draw down on the balance that we have out there. So those are the main points that I wanted to make, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Representative Immings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Bobby. Question comes in, I've got a couple. What was the appraisal on the building that was sold?
The building did appraise for $1.2 million. So we were, I admittedly, a little disappointed in the auction. However, partially, I believe, the timing. And it is a building in need of updating quite a bit, even though we had some major mechanical pieces that we had to replace in the last couple of years. As you might know now, if you've seen online the building, they're literally gutting the inside of it. So I think that's part of it. And this, just the fact that commercial real estate during the pandemic was not at its height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess along with that, okay, so you're going to receive an amount of money. We just don't know what it is yet.
It will be probably a little
100.
less than 100,000.
So is it anticipated then the SGF investment then will go down once you receive that? Or was there another expenditure for that? I guess what I mean is that what we're having an increase of 976,000?
Yeah, the SGF amount is for the refund of the privilege fee. And the reason that has to come from SGF is when we receipt the money for the privilege fee, but we transfer all the receipt of the privilege fund to the state general fund. And so any refund of a privilege fee amount has to come back through the state general fund, because our insurance regulation fund, what we operate on, we can't expend it on privileged fee reimbursements. So that's why we have the SGF. There was no SGF associated with the building operations or anything.
My fault, I appreciate that. So then the anticipated $100,000 is actually earmarked for expenditure somewhere in this budget.
It would just go into our fee fund, the insurance regulation fee fund that we operate the agency from.
Explain to us about the $16.1 million lawsuit settlement. What's that? What's that about?
That was a lawsuit that had to do with the fact that they were pulling money from our insurance regulation fund and transferring it to the state general fund in times of overall state budget need. But the insurance regulation fund has a very specific statutory purpose to it. And so the lawsuit was saying they can't take the fees from those agencies and licensor people to pay for state general fund obligations. And so over the course of the last few years, they had transferred $16.1 million, and that's what we got back in the lawsuit.
But you sued the state of Kansas? Is that that's who you sued? Or who did you sue?
Sure, I mean, I guess that's what the lawsuit was from, is the commissioner of insurance was asking the governor for that money to come back to the insurance regulation fund.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Commissioner Schmidt.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to be clear about that. That was a previous administration that did that. I want to set the record straight on that. I inherited that lawsuit when I came into office.
Was going to mention that, and by the way, I voted against that sweep. Now, actually, on that same note, Bobby, I noticed that the agency request in 22 doesn't show that payback, but the governor's rec does. Is that just an oversight, or does the governor think that we are going to continue paying it even after we already have?
I would have to defer that question to Martin, because the 3 payments that we got in, well, 20 and 21, and we also got one in 2019. So that should be the end of the payments, but we're happy to receipt that if you want to send it to our.
Interesting. Okay, one other question that I had here, well, actually, I had a couple of them. Regarding the technology and the plexiglass and so on, the COVID-related expenses, Is any of that being backfilled from CARES Act or any other federal monies?
Did receive some of the CRF money that we put towards those. We received a total of 80,000 in the two distributions that they had of that money, some in the early stages and then later on. So we did use that money for a lot of our cleaning supplies, for facilities changes we needed to make, and for technology. We did not have a lot of our employees that had laptops at the time. We didn't, yeah, so we did get $80,000 in the two distributions for that, some in the early times and then later on. And we did use that for some facility adjustments, cleaning supplies, and then a lot for technology, as we did not have a lot of employees who actually had laptops that they were able to use. So we were in a process of doing that, but this sort of sped it up so that we were able to be able to have employees, all employees have laptops.
Was there additional expense for this preparation and so forth beyond the $80,000 that was backfilled?
You know, I would say the 80,000 probably helped cover most of what we needed. So I wouldn't say that we were overburdened financially with that. It was just the process of getting it all done and being able to help.
Gotcha. Now, tell me one, I know we'll hear this bill and I'll probably, before too long, be perfectly fluent in it, but could you go through 2074 again for me?
I will highlight that for you. I'm probably not the expert on the bill itself, but it pertains to our examination process in our producer licensing area. So it does do change in the licensing requirements and the renewal dates and the agent's conduct, suspension, revocation, and the fees and the appointment requirements. So basically, there's part of it that will eliminate business entities having to pay appointment renewal fees for affiliate agents, and that is where the reduction in revenue comes. And I would say if the commissioner would like to speak to that, she's probably more familiar with the bill than I am.
Not sure she could hear you on that last part.
Probably couldn't. Vicki, is there anything you want to add on that bill?
Yeah, I was just, I would say that it changes the appointment process. So currently, if you work for if you're an independent insurance agency and you sell insurance to you sell insurance products of 5 different companies, like, Travelers and you could, I probably shouldn't name them, but you can name 5 different companies. You had to pay Kansas for an appointment of every agent that worked in your office for each one of those 5 companies. And there were agents in the offices that don't sell for the specific companies. They may sell only 2 out of the 5, or they may sell 1 out of the 5. So what this bill does is we are the only state that handles appointments this way. What this does is said you only have to pay for those that are actually selling for the companies that the agency has the agreements with. So that's why we're going to take it. We don't know for sure what that hit will be, but we believe it'll be about the estimate is about $5 million a year out of the regulatory fee fund. And as your committee has so astutely noted, that fund has continued to grow. And, the other part of that producer licensing bill is it allows us to participate in a system that 48 other states participate in. So it'll make it so much easier for our licensees to renew their licenses. And we are really excited about that. I know Lee Modisette, our Director of Government Affairs, would don't tell him I said this, but he'd love to talk your ear off about this. And so if you want to get into the nitty gritty details, let me know and I'll send Lee by your office. I'd say book at least a half hour.
He is good at that, but yeah, I'd love to have a chat with him about that. That'd be fantastic.
I will send him your way, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Any further questions for Bobby? Yes, Representative Wagner.
Okay, I still have a real query. Again, going back to the chart on page 13, where this one fee fund, where you have an ending balance of $31 million as we speak. Even with this bill adjusting, as I would take it, the revenue from the fees approximately $5 million a year, which means you're going to be taking in basically $15 million a year, and you're going to be expending approximately $10 million a year. I mean, why, if your annual expenditures are only $10 million a year, you have literally over 3 years worth of an ending balance? I mean, what's the point of that?
Again, part of the reason that balance grew so heftily was because of the 16.1 million that we got back in one fell swoop. And then we have been working on this bill. We introduced this bill last year in anticipation of it, passing and then reducing our revenues. But again, last year, not many things passed last year. So that's why we're bringing it back this year. And partially, and you're right, if we don't see the reduction in those revenues that we think, we might need to do something else. Right now, we're estimating the 5.2 million. It might be higher than that. So we'd like to pass the bill. We will also have some programming costs that we'll have to do in order to effectuate that bill. And so we'll need some money for that as well. We'd like to see what the overall impact of that bill is before we do something drastic with the balance in our fund.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman?
Fair enough.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes, thank you for that question, Representative Wagner. And I do want to say that we do continue to look at efficiencies each and every year, and that has helped increase that fund also. But this is a first step that we're taking, and we will be taking a look at this once we get our feet underneath us. If our producer licensing bill is fortunate enough to move forward through both chambers and onto the governor with the signatures. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the question.
Good news is, I don't think we have to think about it being swept. Sorry, I crack myself up sometimes. All right, we have any other questions for Bobby? All right, thank you, Bob. Oh, wait, hold on, you're not out of the woods just yet. Representative Wagner.
Okay. Going on to page 15, from your Securities Act fee fund, which there is a large transfer out, which I believe is to the Fireman's Fund or something. What is that like? It's like 12, 13 million bucks a year.
Actually, that $13 million transfer goes to the state general fund.
So this is like a rebate to the state. Okay, that's very kind of you. I have another question, if you don't mind. If you look at
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, Commissioner Schmidt.
I'm so sorry. Boy, this is hard to do this virtually, and I apologize for not being there. Representative Wagner, I want to talk about that $13 million transfer briefly. There is a pending lawsuit currently that the security, even though the state statute says, the state law says that we transfer any excess into the state general fund out of the securities fund. So not the insurance regulation fund, but out of the securities fund. There is a lawsuit currently pending. The Securities Commission is not a party to that lawsuit. The lawsuit is, since that transfer happens to the state general fund, the state of Kansas is the entity that lawsuit is aimed at. And we are given updates on that, but we can certainly put you in touch with our legal counsel if you if you would like to know more about what we know about that. But that lawsuit was brought on by the security agents themselves. So that's something that the legislature may or may not need to deal with on down the line. Since we're not a party to the lawsuit, we're aware of it and certainly we're tracking it, but we are not a party to that lawsuit that you again have pointed out. So hopefully that's helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So just by way of, the Securities Act, through your fees, you're basically generating $16 million a year. It only costs you a little over $3 million a year to administrate. And so the profit, as it would be, is what goes to the state general fund. And so these securities agents are suing, saying the fees are too high or something, or where do they want it to go to?
I believe that, they're saying that, again, they're putting that money in, that it should either go to the benefit of them or, the fees should be reduced. However, those fees are pretty small as they are. But yes, every year statutorily, all but 50,000 of that, whatever the balance is at the end of the year, minus $50,000 that they let us keep to go into the next year, goes to the state general fund. And they're saying they pay it, they should get the benefit of it.
What, you don't mind me asking one more question? You have another thing about a fireman's fund, that your firefighters relief fund. And what exactly is that for? Unemployed firefighters, or who does that go to?
Goes to the fire districts. It's literally a pass-through. The money comes in and then it is allocated out to the fire districts across the state. So it
just supplements their budget on the local level, I guess,
yes.
like for different fire departments, or?
Yes.
Or, okay, thank you.
Further questions for Bobby? Seeing none. Okay, now you're off the hook.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the Comptroller, Charlotte, is it Daubert? Oh, gotcha. Good for you. All right, I think that was Amanda Walter here for just in case?
She's just, that's why she was on the invitation.
Okay, very good. Certainly. Representative Wagner.
Okay. Again, being the Workers' Compensation Division, two questions. One is, the contractual services are an incredibly high percentage of the entire expenditures. Was one question I had as to why that would be the case. And then secondarily, under other assistance, you have like $4 million a year. That is, what exactly is that related to as far as expenditures?
I don't want Charlotte to feel left out, so I'm going to let her answer that.
Congratulations, Representative Wagner. You got her off the bench.
Committee members. On the contractual services for, those are attorney fees, payments to nursing homes and hospital associations for work comp claimants. So if we have a claimant and they're in a nursing home or they're in a hospital, we have to pay those out. The $4 million under other, I forget which category it's in, that is for director certifications. So in that situation, it was originally determined that the insurance company had to pay on the work comp claim. And then after it was overturned and comes back that it wasn't work comp. Well, somebody has to make that insurance company whole, so we get to do that. And that payment goes back to them. And those director certifications fluctuate each year. Some years we have incredibly high years, some years they're lower. It just depends on how many cases come in that get overturned.
Okay, this is not just for the administration of the workers' compensation department. This is also the actual, money it's a boatload of money, and workers' comp must be a much bigger operation than this. I'm a little confused. This is
On the,
just for the insurance department's workers' compensation cases?
on the insurance companies. Say this, the self-employed ones and,
Here, but
Mr. Chair, I might mention, this is not the state's overall workers' compensation. This is just for those who do not pay into that, I believe. But Charlotte's going to get her notes and make sure she's clear on it.
with me today, but I will email that to you, the clarification on that.
all right, and thank you for the clarification also.
Questions for the Department of Insurance? Seeing none, very good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you for being here, Commissioner. All right, let's turn our attention then to the Department of Revenue. And to give us a brief rundown of the Department of Revenue, and a speedy rundown of Department of Revenue, if I know him, it will be Mr. Dylan Deere. Dylan, I can't hear you. Your microphone.
Now?
There you are. There you are.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Dylan Deere. I'm a managing analyst with the Legislative Research Department. Before I jump into the Department of Revenue budget, if I could address an issue with the Insurance Department really quickly. And that is that the work comp program that Representative Wagner was asking about, that is specifically to pay the claims of injured workers employed by employers who are insolvent, bankrupt, or cannot be located. So you can kind of think of it as a UI fund for work comp. So it's really very much a very small subset of the work comp program. And the additional question that had been asked about the $4.4 million in 22 on the transfer, or 5.4, excuse me. I have been informed that that is an error just in the 404 and the governor's recommendation. It doesn't actually affect the balance of the state general fund, but there will be a submission correcting that, is what I've heard back. So,
excellent, thank you.
All right. If there are no further questions on Insurance Department, I'll move directly to the Department of Revenue. Thank you very much. I do have Chris Holm here. He is the Chief Fiscal Officer for the Department of Revenue. He'll be able to answer many of your questions that I cannot, as well as Mavis Cockrell, who is Deputy Director of the Office of Financial Management. So if I can't answer it, I'm sure one of the two of them will be able to. You should have a budget analysis before you that has the Department of Revenue at the top of it. And if I could turn directly to the performance measures section, which is on page 6. As you may be aware, House Bill 2739 does require agencies to submit performance measures for their various agency budgets. There is a variety of performance measures that are provided by the Department of Revenue. There's a few I'd like to bring your attention to. If you go to the third down on the left, you have the number of random controlled buys performed for the sale of alcohol to underage persons. Of course, this is part of the ABC program inside of the Department of Revenue. And you can see that there's an intention going from 18 actuals, 19 actuals, 20 actuals, 390, 380, 404, increasing up to 612 is what the projection is inside of the governor's recommendation. So there's definitely an intention by the Department of Revenue to increase the frequency of those random controlled buys. On the compliance rate for those controlled buys, okay, historically they've been sitting between 80, 87%, 85%. And that continues to be the target. It's trying to maintain that 85%, 87% compliance for those controlled buys. And if you look down to the last two, you can see average customer wait time at the 10 largest driver's license offices. And you see in 18, it was as long as 35 minutes, 20 minutes in 19, down to 10 minutes in 20 for the actuals, and with a target of getting it down and holding it at that below 10-minute range for those wait times. And the one other item I'd like to bring to your attention on that is the total transactions at state driver's license offices. You can see they were sitting in the 700 to 800,000 range for total transactions. And in 2020, you had that big drop down to 539,000. And that was as a result, of course, of like pandemic closures and stuff like that. It's going to reduce the total number of transactions that are occurring at offices. But that is some of the performance measures that are indicating what's going on at the agency. And with that, if I could turn your attention to the FY 2021 budget, which begins on page 9. Looks like everybody's there. So the 2020 legislature approved a state general fund budget of about $16 million for the Department of Revenue. You had a $21,500 increase as a result of reappropriations. That's simply SGF money that was budgeted for 19 or 20 that's rolling over to 21. And there's a decrease of $86,000 as a result of the governor's July 1st, 2020 SGF allotment. Those allotments were around, there was a little bit on a coronavirus relief fund swap, about $15,000. And the rest of it was in CAPERS death and disability. The CAPERS D&D contributions were part of the CAPERS rate, and they were suspended as a moratorium for 1 year. I've been informed by CAPERS that there are adequate fund balances in order to continue to make those death and disability payments. And so it simply reduces the expenditures by the agency, but doesn't really affect its operations in any way, shape, or form. Those adjustments change the balance to about $15.96 million for SGF, or a total budget of $108.5 million as approved. The agency estimates a revised amount of 108.5, including 16 SGF. It's an all funds increase of about $60,000 or 0.1%. The budget includes about $1.6 million in hardware and software implementation costs for the channel modernization project. That's in the tax administration division. It's an updated software implementation, hardware implementation. With the idea of streamlining tax processing. There's a bunch of OCR stuff that's tied into it. And I think it's also supposed to tie into the audit system, which was just recently installed. The increases were partially offset by a reduction of $890,000 in aid to local units of government from the Special County Mineral Production Tax Fund. That receives an 8% excise tax on coal, oil, and gas produced in Kansas. And so those monies flow back. So this is basically a flow through fund. So those monies go back to the counties where the excise tax was imposed. It's unlike these. There was another one. There's another fund that's similar to this that has to do with depletion of oil and gas, and that's not what this is. So this is actually flowing just back to the counties. There's a reduction of $323,000 in the motor vehicle division. That's related to the sale of vehicle license tags, and $150,000 in contract attorney expenditures. If you look at it from an FTE perspective, okay, the agency is estimating 1,089.3 FTEs. It's a net increase of 10.6 FTE positions. There's an additional 17 FTE positions in the motor vehicle division, and that's for the Wichita West driver's license location, which is a new driver's license office. The agency also added 3 additional FTE as roving FTE in the Wichita region. So they would basically plug holes where necessary due to sickness or to reduce wait times. They also added 4 FTE positions in the tax administration division for information technology analysts who were transferred from the administration program. And those increases were partially offset by FTE position reductions in the administration division, mostly in IT analysts. And that is largely around just figuring out how many IT analysts they really need. There's been some major restructuring in the IT department for the Department of Revenue over the last 2 or 3 years. If you can turn to the next page. There's quite a bit of additional detail here on salaries and wages and contractual services, but I think from a policy perspective, that's all largely been covered by the things I've explained to you already, but I would always stand for questions on those. The governor recommends expenditures of $108.1 million, including $15.3 million SGF in 21. It's an all funds decrease of $451,547 or 0.4%, and it's an SGF decrease of about $621,000 or 3.9%. The governor did recommend deleting $218,999, $219,000 or 0.3% from the agency's salaries and wages request through increasing the shrinkage rate. The governor's recommendation also deletes about $403,000 in out-of-state travel. And these decreases are partially offset by an increase of about $170,000 in coronavirus relief funds from the Office of Recovery. I think these were round 3 distributions. The KDOR isn't, and that's why it's showing up here in the governor's recommendation and not the agency request. KDOR has indicated it plans to expend about $60,000 in contractual services costs on cleaning and sanitizing, and about $110,000 in commodities expenditures for personal protection equipment, PPE, thermal kiosks, or employee temperature screenings. The governor also does recommend a decrease of about 40 FTE positions below the agency's requests. The governor has been saying that the KDOR has maintained about 70 vacant and funded FTE positions to conform with shrinkage requirements, and those positions should be eliminated. And you can see sort of where those shrink reductions are. I think I've already touched on the governor's allotments. So with that, I would stand for questions for fiscal year 2021.
First off, Dylan, you mentioned the transactions being down in 2020 due to the pandemic closures. How many of those were agency-owned offices, and are those transactions also reflective of the county closures?
So the revenues from those transactions would end up in the Department of Revenue. And Chris will verify this for me. And he also, I believe, has a spreadsheet that has the list of state license offices and county license offices, which he can share with you either now or later.
Later would be fine. I just wanted to see how much. I saw that we had 539,000 transactions, and I just wanted to get some ballpark as to whether county closures were also impacting that, or if that was strictly from the state level.
I could say that county closures would impact that's the transaction numbers.
Right, and with regards to channel modernization, as I understand it, that is completed and we'll no longer see expenses for that other than maintenance?
I don't believe it's completed yet, but the plan is to complete it in this current fiscal year. And you will see expenses for it, but those will just be operational expenditures going forward. So I think it's like $100,000 a year or something like that in annual operating costs.
It's going to save us money elsewhere. Is that correct?
I would defer to the agency on that request.
Safe answer, safe answer. All right, further questions for Mr. Deere so far? Seeing none. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Moving to page 12. So the agency requests $108.9 million, including $16.1 million SGF for 22. It's an all funds increase of almost $400,000 or 0.4%. And it's an SGF increase of about $100,000 or 0.6% above the 21 revised estimate. Salaries and wages were up about $1 million, about $636,000 SGF. And that's largely tied to fringe benefit costs. So there's a huge CAPERS increase of $423,000 that's included as part of this budget. That's largely because as the death and disability moratorium goes away, that's basically a 1% increase effectively in the CAPERS contribution rate, employer CAPERS contribution rate that gets implemented. Group insurance is up about $315,000, and there's a reduction in shrinkage of about $211,000. There's also the channel modernization project in the middle of the top paragraph. It's about $1.5 million in capital outlay and contractual services expenditures. That is a reduction because that was one-time cost for fiscal year 2022. And as I mentioned, there's about $100,000 in annual operating costs that are tied to that. And there's also an increase of about $400,000 for the Special County Mineral Production Tax Fund. And that is just an estimate that as prices rebound, hopefully for oil and gas, production goes up, which drives additional excise taxes back to the local cities and counties. If you could turn to the next page, page 13. The governor recommends 107.3 million, including 14.5 million SGF. It's an SGF decrease of about 1.6 million or 10% below the 22 agency request. And that's largely a result of the implementation of the reduced resource proposal. There's two portions of that reduced resource proposal. There's about 442,000 in SGF reductions tied to travel. And that's largely, that's out of state travel and international travel, although international travel is a very small portion of that pie. And staff reductions about $1.2 million. The agency indicates that they would have to hold approximately 25 additional positions vacant in the Department of Revenue's normal turnover process. And those would include tax collection staff, tax auditors, temporary staff used open mail during the filing season. The governor also reduced an additional 40 FTE positions. That's carrying those same reductions from the previous fiscal year forward into FY 2022. With that, I would stand for questions on FY 2022.
Dylan, should I save this for the agency, or can you speak to the impact on the reduced resources, particularly as it relates to staff?
I think it would definitely be appropriate for the agency to respond to that particular request. They're more familiar with their internal operations.
That makes sense. All right, questions for Dylan? Mr. Deere? Seeing none.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Once again, Chris Holm is available to answer additional questions if you wish.
Excellent. Well then, let's welcome to committee Chris Holm.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Welcome back to committee. Glad to be back here with you once again.
I'm glad to be here as well.
I sent over today just this little packet of information to kind of supplement Dylan's presentation. It basically just kind of summarizes how the agency is funded. We're about, for those on the committee not familiar, we have about $15 million in state general fund. About $50 million of our budget is a transfer from the state highway fund. And then the remainder of our agency is funded through our various fee funds. And then in the next portion, we didn't have any enhancement requests this year. In the 2021 budget comparison, I just provide this for you just so you know kind of what we've done since our budget was approved last spring. We go back and revise and change what we need to and reflect reorganizations, decreased expenditures, increased expenditures, etc. And then I know that you've been inquiring about COVID funds. We have received a couple rounds of the CRF funds, about $136,000 for some expenses that we incurred back last fiscal year at the very beginning for public health expenses, which are like janitorial services if we have to shut down an office. And we've gotten really good at, if there was a confirmed COVID case, that we can shut down a driver's license office or whatever and have it reopened the next day. We've managed to do that, and all of our driver's license, at least the state-owned ones or the state-run ones in the state facilities, are open as we speak. We've also spent money on personal protective equipment, some telework equipment for employees as well. And then we've spent about $283,000, and I will predict that we're probably going to spend close to our $170,000 that we've been allotted. I don't think we'll go over that, but we've got a good handle on that. For FY22, you were asking about the reduced resource package. I did have a feeling that this was coming, so I was sort of preparing last year, and we've been able to carry forward, cut expenses in other ways where luckily we have the flexibility to use carryover in our fee funds to supplement SGF if we need to. And why an SGF allotment is never good. I think that we're going to be able to be just fine without suffering too much. I don't anticipate that we'll have to hold the 25 vacant positions open just because of with some of our office closures and things last year and reduced expenditures in the last part of the year. I think that we'll probably be okay without a significant impact to the agency.
So good to hear. I love the sound of that. Right, so the impact that was listed about the temporary staff opening mail and so forth, I remember horror stories about mail being unopened and months going by, and you don't foresee anything like that?
No, sir. At the time that I submitted the budget, I wasn't sure and exactly how our expenditures were going to go this year either, but we've been really watching where we can in anticipation that this was coming up. So why it says that is a potential, could potentially go, that's not going to be the case in next fiscal year.
Beautiful. Do we have questions for Mr. Holm?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, just so that I heard right, 50 million, was it $50 million that you get from the transportation fund?
Yeah, it's actually about 48. We get about $2 million into that fund. I misspoke, from other revenue sources, but then a majority of it, though, about 48 to 49 million a year, comes from a transfer from the state or from the state highway fund.
I was just trying to add that all up, and I just wanted to make for sure that I heard that right. So
yeah, you did. You did.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chris, one of the biggest, really, as far as constituent services are concerned with regards to Department of Revenue, the biggest that I've heard is office closures. And I know that the vast majority are county-owned offices. Can you speak to that and how we can try to limit that?
Yeah, I'm going to have to do some more checking on that. I did go back and look. I asked the Division of Vehicles to give me an updated report, and I'll see if I can get it for you by tomorrow. But as of a couple of weeks ago, I think we had 9 county offices that were closed that I know of. But I'll try to get an updated number for you by tomorrow, and any remedies that they may have.
Be particularly interested in the remedies, trying to find a way to get people the services that they need.
Yeah, I understand.
Further questions, Representative Wagner.
Yes, thank you very much. I do have a couple questions. What exactly is the electronic database fee fund? There's a fee on databases?
Well, what that is we sell driver history records and vehicle history records to different vendors, like to use for insurance companies purchase them from us for when they're going to use them to evaluate a driver's history, or like a vehicle record search as well, like a title search or something along those lines. It goes through like Experian. That's one of the big vendors, and they pay on a per record fee, and we send them an invoice every month, and then they remit money back to that, and that's where it goes, is in the electronic database fee fund.
And may I ask, the photo fee fund, you're selling the pictures of citizens to somebody?
No, sir. No, the history, driver history, vehicle history.
On the photo fee fund? Is that?
No, the photo fee fund is different. The photo fee fund is when you go to the driver's license station and you pay an $8 photo fee as part of the license registration. 5 of that comes back to the Department of Revenue, or I guess it's probably 4 and 4, I think now. 4 of it comes back to the Department of Revenue to cover our administrative expenses, and 4 of it goes to the vendor that produces your credential to produce that and mail it back to you.
Another question or two. So the division of tax, or well, actually one thing. So you folks have a pretty, I don't know, relatively significant discrepancy between what your proposal is and what the governor's proposal is. Are are you acquiescing to the governor that it makes sense in the end, or are you thinking she's nuts, or what's your opinion of the governor's suggestion?
That's a loaded question. I had a feeling that this was coming. And so luckily we have these fee funds that we rely heavily on that pay, for half of our agency expenditures. And when we don't spend those monies, then they can carry through to the next year and we can use them the next year. And so that's what we've done in this case is we've tried to lower our expenses coming out of those fee funds, knowing that we weren't going to have the SGF resources available potentially in FY22. And so we just planned ahead, basically.
So, but that would affect the revenue stream. So you're saying you don't have to cut, you're not wanting to cut your costs because you have additional revenue? Is that what you're trying to say? Or are you actually going to cut costs? Like the reduction of 25 positions.
Yeah, no, we have been all along. We just really watch our expenses. And in FY20, for example, because of COVID, some of our things that we were doing and some of our expenses weren't as high as we had projected in the previous budget cycle. So what happened is we're able to carry those, since we didn't spend the money in those fee funds, we were able to carry those balances forward and use them to pay for expenses in the next fiscal year.
Where are your fee funds listed as far as the ending balances of your fee funds? I mean, I see you have, funding sources, but there's not like an ending balance as to what your, is that on one of these pages? I'm not. Oh, no. Okay. No, I'm seeing it. I see on 16 is electronic database. Okay. And the Department of, okay, never mind. I am finding that aspect. I do have a secondary question related to the Division of Taxation about auditors. My memory was from the efficiency report that came out, the Alvarez and Martinez report, I believe. Wasn't there a thing that if you guys had additional agents that it would actually generate more revenue because you'd have better compliance? Is that relevant here?
Well, I know what you're speaking of, and there's two parts to that. There's the compliance piece, which is the collection agents, which go out and collect delinquent tax revenue. And then there's also the auditors who go out and ensure that taxpayers are paying the correct amount of tax. So it's a two-sided thing. And yes, there was a recommendation in the A&M study some years ago that we increase the auditing staff, and we did add positions to that. It just is one of those positions where we get people in the door. It takes about 2 years to get them trained, and then what happens is we end up losing them. And so that's been a little bit higher turnover area, but we're looking at some things to kind of to change that. But what we're saying in this case is that if we had to hold 25 positions that use SGF as a funding source, that we would have the auditors or something that are funded from the state general fund. Also, the people that open the mail are funded from the state general fund as well. But like people that work in a driver's license capacity at a driver's license station, they're funded by that $50 million Division of Vehicles operating fund.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, very good. Any further questions for the Department of Revenue? Seeing none. Very good. Thank you for being here, Mr. Holm.
All right. Thank you. It's good to see you again, Mr. Chairman.
See you. All All right, committee, if we don't have any further questions with regards to the Department of Revenue, let's turn our attention to a very closely related department, the Dental Board. And to give us a quick rundown on the Dental Board budget, we have once again, Ms. Analyst Martin DeBoer.
Actually, it's Megan Leopold.
Oh, Megan Leopold. We like you better than Martin anyway.
Thank you. All right, the Kansas Dental Board. I'm Megan Leopold from Legislative Research. The Dental Board was established to enforce the Dental Practices Act. Their responsibilities include licensing and certifying qualified candidates. They administer examinations. They also conduct inspections of licensees to ensure that offices are in compliance with sanitary and other regulations. They also investigate complaints of incompetence, negligence, and any illegal practices. If you will turn to page 3. Under the section regarding the legislation, the most recent and legislative changes that have been made last year in 2020, the legislature deleted a transfer of $41,000 that had been slated to help fund the K-Trax program. So this is no longer included in the Dental Board's budget. On page 5, you'll see the agency's performance measures. They track the number of complaints received, the number of disciplinary actions, the number of inspections, and then also the cost per license. I'm going to skip ahead quite a bit to page 9. On page 9, you'll see the agency's fiscal year 21 revised estimate. The agency has no allotments, no supplementals, and no enhancements in their budget. In fiscal year 21, the agency requested $425,000. That's all from special revenue funds, the Dental Board Fee Fund. This is the same amount that was approved by the 2020 legislature. It also includes 3 full-time employees, which is also the same number that was approved by the 2020 legislature. And the governor concurred with the agency's estimate. On the next page, you'll see fiscal year 22. In fiscal year 22, the agency requested $418,500 from special revenue funds. This is an all funds decrease of $7,314 or 1.7%, and that's below the agency's revised 2021 estimate. The decrease is largely due to some expenditures or some savings that were found in efforts to streamline their online licensing process. Fiscal year 22 also has 3.0 FTE positions in the budget. And again, the governor concurred with the agency's request for both funding and full-time employees. Moving to page 12, you'll see the fiscal year 23 budget. In fiscal year 23, the agency requests $417,000, again, all from the Dental Board Fee Fund for operating expenditures. This is an all funds decrease of $1,500 or 0.4%, and that's below the agency's fiscal year 22 request. This $1,500 difference is largely due to some fluctuations in travel-related expenditures anticipated and also some changes in employee fringe benefits. And once again, the governor concurred with the agency's request. Skipping ahead to page 17, you'll see the Dental Board Fee Fund table. The Dental Board also has a special litigation reserve fund, but they do not anticipate needing to make any transfers from that in fiscal years 21, 2, or 3. That was a quick run through the budget. I'm happy to stand for any questions you might have.
If you have any really hard-hitting questions on this one, I recommend we hold them for the next person testifying. However, if you have any questions regarding this budget, this would be an excellent time to ask. Seeing none. Leopold, you nailed it. No
Thank you.
questions. No questions for you. That's amazing. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Next committee, we have Mr. Lane Hemsley, who would like to speak to the Kansas Dental Board budget. Welcome to committee, Lane.
It's good to see you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to visit with you briefly. As Megan just kind of briefly summarized, we think our budget's lean. We operate lean on purpose. We think it's fairly simple and straightforward. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have regarding any of the particular line items and the like, but I don't have anything else to add or supplement other than we're happy with where we are if you are.
I'll tell you what, there was something in here that really caught my attention, and that was increased efficiencies with your online licensing. Could you tell me a little bit about that, how that came about and what it looks like in practice?
Happy to do so. When I took over from the dental board, we were predominantly or entirely a paper-based licensing renewal application and renewal process. And so I essentially tried to find ways in which we could streamline the entire system. And the best way to do that at that particular time was to focus on renewals first and then work backwards to applications. So we've worked with the Kansas Information Consortium, what we commonly know as KIC, and they've tied into our database, and we've been able to speed up our licensing renewals. Sometimes it used to take months, and when I took over, it was a couple of months to work through all the paperwork, and now it typically takes the licensee about 5 minutes to apply, and then we send the cards out, or their license renewal cards, what we call cards, or the license cards that you would normally see in a dental office. That takes us less than 24 hours. So we've found some really nice efficiencies there, and our licensees really enjoy that. When I started, the online renewal process was approximately 2 or 3% usage, and we're well over 90% usage. So it's been a high adoption rate. So we've been real happy with that. So that's why our numbers are fairly stable or dropping in some capacity.
I commend you on that, by the way. So often when we hear that we're going to go electronic, I get a big increase in expenses to set it up, and then I don't see any savings on the other side. So I'm really happy to see this.
Thank you. We hope to continue to do that. We hope not to ask for more money to do that. Appreciate it.
Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hensley, question in looking at your performance measures, you didn't have any downturn in the number of inspections it looked like that you had last year. On-site inspections.
So thank you, Representative. So we contract with a private dentist, and that dentist is obligated under the contract to produce 360 inspections for us each year. And so those occur in various quadrants of the state. And now that contractor can also subcontract with other dentists or hygienists, and the board approves those individuals who are allowed to go into dental offices. And so that's what we budget for. So it's basically $110 per inspection, regardless of the location in the state. And then he being our contractor, finds subcontractors across the 4 quadrants, and then we can find dental practices in Hayes and in Liberal and Seward and all the far reaches of the state without increasing our costs. So it's a kind of a cost benefit analysis that we perform as something that we've been real happy with, and the board likes the model that they've deployed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I appreciate you going through exactly what you did. I know that we talked about that a year ago when the dental board was here during their budget. And I thought that was something that was pretty neat, the way that was happening. But as we look at some of the fee-funded agencies that actually inspect businesses and such, we see a downturn and some of the things that have happened. But we didn't see that in the dental board, so that kind of jumps out and gets me a little bit. So I appreciate the explanation there.
Thank you.
And if you could kind of or expand on that just a little bit, are you having practicing dentists inspecting themselves, or how did that work exactly with the subcontractors?
Oh, thanks for the clarification question, Mr. Chair. So we contract with one dentist. That contract is bid out every year through the state's open bidding process. And I say bid out every year. It's bid out every time the contract comes due. So we just bid that out a couple of years ago. We gave this contractor a 3-year guaranteed contract with 2 optional out-year, so that contractor could produce what we call sanitation inspections. And then when he reaches areas of the state where it says, so he's located in Kansas City, let's say we need a dental office inspected in Hayes. Well, he won't very well drive across the state for one dental office. So he'll find subcontractors in particular quadrants of the state to produce that service for us. So it's people that the board has have reviewed and the board will authorize to perform an inspection, but it's not one dentist next door to the other reviewing. These are all board authorized and permitted to go in. They have business cards that says dental board inspector. They identify themselves. Those dental offices can call our office to confirm that this person's supposed to be there. And then an inspection will occur and they'll receive documentation that the inspector was there on a sanitation inspection form that's particularly for those particular services. And most dental offices that have been around know those folks are coming. So they're familiar with the procedures.
Excellent. Thank you for that. That makes a lot more sense. I was starting to get a little worried there.
Thank you.
Representative Wagner.
Yes, thank you very much. How many dental offices are there in the state of Kansas total?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and thank you for that, Representative. We have roughly 1,500 active dentists, and that varies to some degree. It flexes from year to year. Active dentists that actually identify themselves as in Kansas and producing services in the dental field. Now, not all of those are independent dental offices, or maybe 3 combined or 4 combined. So we anticipate, or we believe, that there's somewhere in the range of approximately 1,000. I don't have the exact number for you here because we isolate dentists on the basis of what their license number. And then sometimes they'll combine, 2 days later, and we don't know the exact number from when offices open and close on a daily basis. But we believe there's about 1,000, give or take, depending on people's coming and going across the state.
So if you're doing 360 inspections a year, basically once every 3 years is how often dental offices get inspected? Is that
yes, correct?
Math?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So now, if your contract is $110 per inspection, that's about a $39,000, $40,000 a year contract. I mean, your total contractual expenditures were what, $200,000-$300,000? I saw it here someplace. I mean, literally, you contract out as much of your work as you do in-house with your 3 employees. What's the rest of the $200,000 in contractual services for?
Yes, thank you, Representative. So the other portion of our dentist who we contract with, he also performs investigative services. So we have, so back to your earlier point, we have sanitation inspections, or what we call inspection services. And then we have investigative services. And those are when we receive a complaint for inadequate or substandard care. One of your constituents will say, hey, I had a bad root canal. What happened? And what are you going to do about it, dental board? We're unable to assist with their monetary claims because those go to a court of competent jurisdiction. But we will review the dentist's work on the basis of perhaps some potential violation of the Dental Practices Act. So we've got that designated for that particular contractor. And then the second component of those contractual services is the fact that we have a licensed attorney, a private attorney, and the board allocates approximately $50,000 each year, give or take, a little bit of flex there, for him to perform, or him and his firm to perform services, legal services on our behalf when there is a determination that legal services are necessary.
Okay. But as far as your actual employees, it's basically like what, you as secretary and a clerk or something, or who makes up your office staff?
Yes, so we have 3 FTEs. Me, I'm the director of the board, and then I have a couple of support staff members. One is a licensing specialist that deals with all the applications coming in, processing licensing, new applicants that want to come to Kansas to practice. And the other does a multitude of different components. Primarily, that job's focus is the investigative work. So it operates as a paralegal. She's actually a paralegal. And so she operates in that capacity and will access or acquire documentation, work with the legal process to ensure it's flowing correctly and cases are being processed in a timely manner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I see no other questions from the committee. So Mr. Hensley, I think, oh, wait, you're not off yet. Representative Wagner.
I do have a question about your fees. As far as what your current fees are, do you compare those to like with what Missouri charges or Nebraska? Or, I mean, is there some sort of like standard notion as to what dental licensing fees should be?
And I certainly appreciate the question. We actually have statutory maximums or caps that we're allowed to impose on licensees. So I could produce a review like that, but we've typically tried to stay at or under the caps of all those statutory maximums that are designated in the Kansas statutes annotated. So we've never really gone beyond that, primarily not just because of the statute, but many other agencies have what we would call an umbrella agency, where there'll be a larger agency that licenses a cross section of a multitude of different professions or expertise. Whereas we just focus on dentists and dental hygienists. So it's kind of self-isolated in that regard.
Further questions? Mr. Hensley, I think you got off a little light today.
I'm happy to come back for the bigger hitters later if you need. Certainly appreciate it. It's good to see you,
Excellent.
Mr. Chair.
Thanks for being here.
Happy to do it.
All right, committee, that concludes the work that we're going to do today. Tomorrow will be, now understand the next 2 or 3 weeks are going to be a lot like this. So I probably would try to limit your evenings social events. Fortunately, COVID has kind of done that anyway. Tomorrow we'll be looking at the real estate board, the real estate commission, and we'll also be looking to make recommendations on these 3 budgets. So I'd recommend reviewing those. If you have questions or concerns or recommendations, jot those down so that we can hammer through those immediately upon hearing about the real estate board and the real estate commission. Until that time, we are adjourned.